Morphin Sequences. They're the hallmark of the Power Rangers franchise. These visual transformations have evolved from the original days of Mighty Morphin to the cutting-edge CGI that we see in Cosmic Fury today. But have you ever sat down and watched one of them throughout the history and realized how much they captivate the Ranger world? And just find ways to explore these intricate tapestries of Morphin moments that really defined a generation of fans. Because Morphin Sequences doesn't just capture the whole entire essence of a season, they can show any individual Ranger's journey along with their powers, motives, and a little bit of their personality too. But each one has their own significance, so I think it's time for some Morphin Madness. Hey, what's up everybody, it's Este here. How many cheesy puns could I do in these YouTube videos? I hope you guys are keeping count. Anyways, I was watching a video by this up-and-coming Power Rangers YouTuber called King Zoru, and basically he was talking about the problem with Hasbro morphs in general, specifically highlighting the Cosmic Fury morph, along with the multiple problems that just plague modern Morphin Sequences ever since the 2010s. I used to grow up thinking that Morphin Sequences were kind of like the best parts of any Power Rangers episode. It's just so epic. That's a lack of words, but it really is. You would have this little rock music going on in the background. The Rangers would just be in so much movement. They would be doing backflips or jumping up and down while a suit materializes on them in just such a cool way. There's always a cool helmet shot in the end, sometimes a little pose, and in some cases explosions. That too. But I feel like some of that sauce is lost today with the enhancements that HDS bought and CGI. It kind of made sense when Morphin Sequences just looked bad quality-wise because you couldn't really see the problems that some of them have. I really feel like back then we did more with less. But I want to go back into the Ranger archives and really find out what made Morphin Sequences just so special. The first ever Morphin sequence in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was quite simple and effective. Seen in the original pilot of the Day of the Dumpster, we get a looping 1-second shot of the Jew Ranger morph, which had the Dino Buckler shining through its coin to its Ranger color, with the American version looping that, and with special effects, put the Rangers holding out the morpher with one hand, while awkwardly editing the Red Ranger helmet onto Jason's body. And it's kind of weird when you look at the actual show because it did take a different approach. We had, of course, the original Power Morpher, which in Jew Ranger, the Rangers are, throwing it out there into battle. Is this upside down? It was. But in Mighty Morphin, they just swing it behind their back. My coin fell. After putting their hand behind their backs, one at a time, each Ranger would be inside their Power Morpher in the place of the Power Coin. They would call out their dinosaur power and in later seasons their Ranger power as lightning effects would surround them, with the only thing taken from the original Jew Ranger morph is the end with the effect of the red Senshi helmet coming on. It was just so crazy to think about the morpher and how they didn't show it that much, because if you look in Power Rangers today, they have the morpher out flipping around showing you the toys for every shot, but in Mighty Morphin they just put it behind their back. It was only shown in like special appearances where it kind of had a drawn out version for the episode, but that's like usually before like a big fight or something. Like when you see a drawn out Morphin sequence, you know it's gonna get real. Season 3 added helmet pop-ups for effect. We also had their Ninjetti forms, which included a quick slideshow of the Rangers going into their Ranger forms. And not all Mighty Morphin sequences after 1995 when the show ended were the same. Big example, Power Rangers in Space. When Adam returned as the Black Ranger for 1998's Power Rangers in Space, he would have an edit into his morph sequence, featuring his new look and hair. What was crazy is that the whole thing of this episode was like, Adam, don't do it! It's morphin' time! And they're not trying to have him use his morpher because his morpher is literally broken, which is so cool, by the way. Why didn't they make that a toy, Hasbro? But when you look in the Morphin sequence, the morpher's fine. However, in 2002, when Jason came back for Forever Red, they used the same Morphin sequence from 1993. Fast forward in 2007, when Adam came back again for Once a Ranger, Disney decided, hey, let's give him a whole new morph sequence because, that's 1993 technology. That's mid-2000s, we're so much better. We're good at explosions. It would show the opening of the Power Morpher, followed by lightning causing rock to break and someone the suit with the helmet materializing on him. And honestly, I thought that morph sequence was so cool. As a kid, one of the first Power Rangers videos that I saw on the internet were fan edits of other people editing other Mighty Morphin Rangers onto Adam's morphing sequence. However, when the original Green Ranger came back twice in Legendary Battle and Dimensions in Danger, we had no new morph sequence as Tommy had a Master Morpher, and with these, no morphin sequence required. Well, kind of, you just saw the Power Morpher come up, but no cool Dragon Zord. Oh, hey, chill. Jason's return in Beast Morphers also didn't give him a new morphin sequence either. It was just an Instamorph. Which Instamorphs are still cool, don't get me wrong. It's cool to see a Ranger morphin just on him, IRL, no sequence added, but this is about the sequence. The sequences are cool. Sometimes we need new ones. They gave freaking Super Mega Force Red a Mighty Morphin sequence when that happened in Super Mega Force. Why couldn't we do one for Tommy or Jason? It wasn't until 2023's Netflix special where we saw the OG sequence being recreated in HD, and with new effects as well. And that would ultimately carry over for Billy's time during Season 30 in Cosmic Fury. However, funny enough, that version is different too because in Once and Always, the Rangers, have clothes on when they morph. But in Cosmic Fury, the clothes are gone again, like in Season 1. Where'd your clothes go? So for the rest of the 90s and after Mighty Morphin, all the rest of the Saban morph sequences were either inspired by their Super Sentai counterparts, or just new entirely. Power Rangers Zeo started this trend by using a similar effect for the suit spawning onto the Rangers like in their Sentai of origin, O-Ranger. Turbo just had its own sequence entirely, drawn out with effects and helmet forming as it was originally created for the 1997 movie. And that was also the first morph to be fully widescreen for Power Rangers, which we wouldn't really see until the HD era. The 1995 movie didn't have a morphin sequence either, they just, morphed and the coin flew out, no sequence. But when you compare Turbo to Car Ranger, its Super Sentai counterpart, the Sentai version just had a car drifting around. A cooler moment, albeit doesn't make any sense. In Space and Mega Ranger starts off the same with numbers being pressed onto the keypad. But the Mega Ranger footage has a lot more tech references that was covered up with effects and text in the American version. What was interesting about In Space 2 is that you didn't really see the Rangers morph up, they just kind of woke up. And they were morphed. Like eyes open, they were mad woke back then. Lost Galaxy may have had the best morph in the era with, to be honest, a fire sequence with each of the Rangers having a nice background while the suit and helmet forms with lightning. However, weirdly enough, like I mentioned in my recent Lightspeed Rescue video, when the Lost Galaxy Rangers came back for Lightspeed Rescue, they just used the Sentai one. Which didn't make sense because, skin color and whatnot, so that was a little weird. But something to note about this era of morph sequences, in the second half of Power Rangers Turbo, the Rangers were silent when they morph. This was better for when multiple Rangers were morphing at the same time like a team morph. You didn't have to show them one by one, you can just show all of them morphing on the same screen. And that honestly has been a standard for the rest of Power Rangers history. But let me tell you, morphing can be a little weird sometimes. And sometimes, keeping it real, I prefer the Sentai version. Sometimes. As much as I love the Lightspeed Rescue Rangers summoning into their umbrella designs while lightning bolts surround them, but something about the Sentai and swinging your suit energy around like it's a cape and you're Superman, while the lines of the suit stick onto you while fire is in the background, just maybe a little bit hits different. The Time Force Rangers got this DNA cell shape to its number background with just a shine of light. The Super Sentai version have the Time Rangers moving around in 360, giving us all the good angles. It's just superior to me, like Cocker Ranger. Cocker Ranger had, the coin shining, the Rangers look into the camera, camera's going black and white, and then boom, they're a ninja now. That was awesome. Alien Rangers? But I ain't got Time Ranger power. And that's it. Boring. They should have just copied the Super Sentai, which actually some morph sequences do. As Wild Force is the biggest example of all this, using the exact same sequence as their Sentai Gal Ranger, just rotoscoping the Wild Force Rangers on top of their Japanese counterparts. But now it's time, guys, to talk about what I think are some of the best morphin sequences of all time. The Disney era morph sequences. Whoa, hey, stop right there. Have you subscribed yet? Have you joined the E-Squad, the fastest growing Power Rangers fan base ever in life and history? Past me doesn't know it, but I know the future. You will subscribe. And leave a comment down below, put the E-Squad in it, and, be the E-Squad clone of the day. You never know when you might be one in the next video. Could be, for sure. Back to me. Ninja Storm was the first morph in the Disney era, and whoa, it was so fast-paced. The thing of their morphers, there's like friction there, right? Boom, they're moving up, down, left, right. They're always switching angles here and there, and then there's the whole one shot of them. You see their Ranger form, Their symbol forms behind them, and the environment that they're in is just so crazy. It's like when you go through morph sequences, you're basically like being taken to another world. And that's what the Disney era was. It was a whole different world for the morph sequence. Dino Thunder had backflips. Can I do a backflip right now? We'll edit that in post. They had backflips going down the ground exploding, and you'd see their dino face pop up. Sick. That was sick. That was radical. As a kid, I was mesmerized by this. Yeah, I'm literally in the booth right now. Guys, how did I forget the SPD morph? How does past me forget something from his favorite season? They were literally doing backflips, like drawing projections of the Ranger, and like helmets was coming from the side, and the Shadow Ranger like dropped down, and he was like glowing, and he was like a CGI dog. Cat Ranger or something similar. Like, how did I forget all that? How? That's a good question. SPD would have 2 other Morphin sequences, but they would, you know, instead of doing flips, they'd be standing. Sky had one for the Red Ranger. Bridge had one for the Red Ranger too. Yes, SPD had 3 Red Rangers. Which one was the best? You guys already know, but leave a comment down below if you know. I love Mystic Force because it's still kind of the same as SPD in the ways, because they have their morpher, right? Let's chill. They would summon magic into the sky and then fly up with their like little animal spirit, mystical spirit type beat. And you know, that's what Disney era sequences were. It was just movement, action, friction, Operation Overdrive. More holograms. I think we're getting a theme here. I thought these were more original, but now I'm reading my script and I'm like, oh, a lot of these are holograms. But cool though. Future, right? Scan, you get the information about the Rangers, so each Ranger sequence would kind of be different in their own type of way. They would do some little spinnies and, you know, helmet and pose. That's how you sell action figures, ladies and gentlemen. Also, Operation Overdrive, you know, with that hologram stuff, I gotta say, that did come out in toy form, though. You guys remember that? Like the special light that could have been used for like spy stuff, like Secret Ink. Am I remembering that? Is that a correct memory, chat?
Let you find hidden clues.
Found it!
Jungle Fury had the Rangers running through the jungle. Running through the jungle. Is that an actual song, chat? They would start off by doing their little moves, forming their animal spirit, running. It would catch up to them, form the Ranger suit. It was quick, efficient, and all cool at the same time. And then, of course, we had RPM, which it felt like you were doing 80 and a 60. Be careful driving, guys, alright? It's very dangerous. And, you know, you would see the seat belts come on, the belt, the helmet. Also, this one is fast-paced because they did pose and they exploded behind them. And you know what? Love the explosions behind them. They even questioned that in episode 2.
I can't help but notice this gigantic explosion right behind me for no apparent reason.
I assume you're referring to the residual energy runoff that is sometimes necessary to clear the suit's biofield channels during the
I'm referring to the 6-story high fireballs, like that one, right there.
And in my opinion, right, when you compare all these to their Sentais, you can see where the inspiration came from, and they just evolved it. They made it better, in my opinion. Opinion, everybody opinion. King Zoru actually mentioned this in their video about all the Cosmic Fury morphs because Sentai morph sequences are very important
Hey, Este.
Nah, I'm tripping, bro. First day I use a green screen and the B-roll is talking to me. Or there's an actual VTuber in the room with us right now.
The latter, actually. You've been forgetting about one of the hallmarks of Ranger transformations, the power-ups. Like Este said, there's a huge importance placed on the morphing sequence for Rangers because it establishes a direct connection between the morpher and the user while also providing a visual representation of the powers they wield. And while their morph sequences set the foundation of the core capabilities of these Rangers, some teams will build on top of that foundation in the form of power-ups and battlizers. What's awesome about power-ups and battlizers is that they allow an opportunity for the creative teams to drive the Rangers concept even further than they originally did. They have the chance to take their already inventive base concept and amp it up several levels. For team power-ups, they of course take the form of something that is generally applicable to the entire team. But for battlizers, this is when they really go full freak mode. Battlizers are one of the heralding concepts of Power Rangers, strictly original to Western production and not taken from Sentai, although the SPD Battlizer would famously make an appearance in Deca Ranger. Like the morph sequences, power-up and Battlizer concepts and transformations need to hit some similar key points in order for them to be meaningful and impactful. They need to have a good driving energy and momentum, they need to be appropriately thematic, and they have to be both creative and innovative. For power-ups specifically, it's usually ripped straight from the Sentai, so there isn't that much that needs to be done. Lost Galaxy's Lights of Orion offered a minimalistic approach to power-ups, providing lightweight additions to their armaments while still feeling powerful. Dino Thunder's Super Dino Mode was an explosive power-up, where the seemingly inoffensive diamond designs become these imposing jagged edges. Mystic Force's Legend Warriors interpreted the power-ups by refining the Ranger form, foregoing the cape in favor of armor while changing the helmet design from a contained look to one that more embraced their magical essence. And speaking of legendary modes, SPD's Swap Mode gave the Rangers a power-up in the form of these sleek and thematic vests, providing them with some fearsome, evil-busting firepower. And for the ones with no Sentai equivalent, there were the metallic modes and the Ninjetti forms of MMPR. The prior is an example of something fun you can do with the existing suits, and the latter, well, the exact opposite. The Ninjetti forms were pretty sick though, a great non-helmeted alternative to the Ranger suit. One of my top team power-ups though is Jungle Fury's Master Mode, or the Super Geki Ranger forms in Geki Ranger. In the show, the Rangers received training under 3 new Animal Fist Masters and obtained these new forms, invoking a different but more ferocious power within them. I've always loved this form, and I thought the way that they get there is great as well. With their Claw Boosters, or Super Geki Claws, which are designed very appropriately. They activate this boost and their new forms don't necessarily appear over their existing ones. Their base suits seem to disintegrate, revealing the new, sleek, white-based forms that effectively showcase their might and dominance. The suits' adornment with vents are very clever as well, as this new form grants them explosive bursts of energy. This form does a great job of taking the Rangers' journeys and translating them into these ferociously fiery forms. Battlizers, like I mentioned before, will take a similar approach to this, but fully within the adaptation's lane. In Space was our first look at an official Battlizer, using CGI to grow those muscles that are almost as iconic as Batman's nipple suit. Lost Galaxy gave us a Battlizer that, while impressively and practically done, was rather top-heavy with its galactic firepower. Dino Thunder was interesting because they probably didn't need to do anything since they already had Abar and Max, but much like the form itself, it extended past expectations and dropped an even more powered up red form with the Triassic Battlizer. And while the SPD Battlizer is pretty universally revered as one of Power Rangers' finest creations, I instead wanted to shine light on another Battlizer, Lightspeed Rescue's Trans Armor Cycle. I think this Battlizer is fantastic for several reasons. For one, the form itself is great. There's something incredibly satisfying about motorcycle wheels on a character's back that almost emulate wings. Secondly, of course, is how Carter even achieves this form. While more recent Battlizer transformations would be a high-speed CGI fest, this Battlizer actually involves a physical motorcycle and practical choreography, and instead of speeding through the entire sequence, there's a well-balanced pace that drives the sequence forward. It might also be because it's not as heavily focused on a stock transformation sequence, but I think the simplicity of this Battlizer makes it feel more grounded and impactful. And for a season like Lightspeed Rescue, where the core powers of the team are less fantastically based, this Battlizer and sequence is appropriately themed and appropriately awesome. Between morphs, power-ups, and Battlizers, the visual and stylistic presentation is so important. If not as well done, it may result in a feeling of inconsistency in the powers and abilities of these Rangers. But when they're well executed, these additional embellishments to the Rangers' strengths can provide an unforgettable impact and a constant reminder of just how powerful these Rangers are. Back to you, Este.
Alright, so let's move on here to the Neo-saban era, because when Saban bought the works over from Disney over to Nickelodeon, times are changing. It's time to go HD. We need better CGI, and morph sequences, man, they're gonna be great from here. Psych! That's what you thought. Power Ranger Samurai had the longest morph sequence in Power Rangers franchise history, being about 15 seconds long. It comprised of the Rangers activating their Samurai Morpher post-symbol drawing, a change form civilian to their undersuit, the summoning of the suit, the Spin Saber summon, the kanji forming the helmet, and after all of that, a roll call where they say, Samurai Ranger, ready. And usually, these roll calls are saved for after the morph, like when you're actually in the fight scene in the flippin' quarry, but all of this was attached to the morph. So when you think about the times they're gonna morph Ranger by Ranger, a 6-Ranger team would take a while. And in the episode Trickster Treat, we saw exactly that, as the Rangers morph call and sequence took a whole 2 minutes. And if you don't know, that's about a whole 9% of the episode. Can we just go back into copying Sentai again, please? Please? Megaforce, albeit shorter, is another example of a copied morph sequence from Japan, which even though their morph sequences are for the most part different, the Megaforce sequence would recreate the animal silhouette spawning the helmet as to have the same ending as the Japanese one has. And with this light background, it subliminally pushes the angelic theming brought over by the Sentai. And you know they did not mean to do that because they took out all them angel references from the show. Another thing they took out the meaning from, the Super Megaforce morph sequence. In Super Megaforce, they made that morph sequence mad dark, with X's coming into the Megaforce suit, slowly forming the layers. This was of course a copy of the Gokaiger Henshin sequence with a slight angle change. And honestly, the X's that formed the suit doesn't make much sense in this Power Rangers version, as in Gokaiger we would see the Roman numerals of 10 and 5 form the suit, with 3 X's and 1 V adding up to 35, that being the anniversary year the Gokaigers was airing. For Super Megaforce, being the 20th season, technically 21, we would see 4 X's go onto the characters. But this is for sure no 40th season. We couldn't do any 5s? Any Roman numeral V's? Is that too hard to add into the morph sequence? Is that too Lightspeed Rescue for you? Dino Charge amidst the Kyryuger dancing before the morph, which you couldn't do in America because Power Rangers is serious and totally not silly enough for having a dancing morph. Anyways, it still takes heavy inspiration from the Kyryuger sequence, having the dinosaur spirit fly around and bite the suit and helmet onto the Ranger bodies. Honestly, this era doesn't have much that I could speak of. King Zoru, you still hear anything to comment about this?
Oh yes, I'm so glad you asked. While team power-ups would continue to be a somewhat regular tradition since it would stem from the original Super Sentai concepts, the official battlizer would make its last appearance in Operation Overdrive in the form of the Red Sentinel Ranger. While Jungle Fury Red would enjoy an original Cycle form, and RPM Red and Megaforce Red would enjoy, well, nothing really. The only Red Ranger after this who would receive an original battlizer-like armament was the Beast Morpher's Red Ranger with his Fury mode. Other than that, Dino Charge Red would receive his special power-up in the form of T-Rex Supercharge, which had to be adapted from Kyryuger's Carnival form without the fun and zesty Fiesta vibes. Ninja Steel Red would have his Lion Fire mode, which was just adapted from Ninja's Chozetsu mode. Dino Fury Red would also obtain his special power-up form in the form of the Dino Knight Red Ranger, which was just the same thing as Ryusoulger's Max Ryusoul Red. So, while the world of battleizers would see no further original concepts, there would be a really interesting and short-lived trend born out of the Neo-saban era: Cockpit modes. Cockpit modes were really interesting. Beginning in Samurai and bowing out for a bit during Megaforce, the Rangers would don these alternative forms whenever they called upon their Zords. The Samurai Rangers would have their Mega mode, a more armored version of their base forms which included a Mega Blade, which was utilized for controlling their Zords. Dino Charge would introduce Dino Drive, activated via a special Dino battery which would double the Rangers' powers inside the Megazord. And finally, the Ninja Steel Rangers would require their own Ninja Master mode in order to command and operate their Megazord. Moving into these modes didn't require a complex sequence either. They were usually a quick and instantaneous transformation that didn't give too much to dissect. Now, as the term implies, the cockpit modes appear exclusively in the Megazord cockpit, essentially replacing the Super Sentai cockpit scenes with new and original footage. What was the reason for this drastic change? I'm not really sure. I'm not entirely sure why they would take the time to design these pretty amped up Ranger forms, only to have them used for cockpit choreography. With these, I always got the sense that Saban really wanted to show that they were back with Power Rangers, and really wanted to show off just how much they could flex. That's why they put in just enough effort to make these modified Ranger suits, but then restricted them to only be used in Zord Cockpit so they didn't have to refilm any fight scenes. They felt like they had something cooking, but they didn't want to make the full effort to really put it on the plate. While the battleizers of the days before pretty effectively displayed proper conceptualization and integration of original power-ups in the show, in my opinion, these cockpit modes left a bit to be desired. But as with everything in life, there are hits and there are misses. So while being a questionable entry into the original Armor series, the cockpit modes remain memorable and a prominent star across the Neo-saban legacy. Back to you, Este.
Are you done? Are we safe? Is it safe to come out? Woo! Alright. Let's keep it going. And today we're in the era of boring morph sequences. That all started with Power Rangers Ninja Steel. I couldn't find a more uninspired morph sequence. The star would just come around and form their suit. The helmet literally comes on like it's a PowerPoint presentation. But then we got Beast Morphers, alright? Beast Morphers, they were covered in some Morph X type of air. Then their animal spirit will pop out like it's possessing them. Kind of scary. And they would just come out the suits there. And then you would have, you know, these things pop onto the suit. And that's it. I think this is also so old, the dust is flying in the air now, contaminating the room. The Rangers standing is just so bad. Like, that's totally not the point of a morph sequence at all. There has to be at least some movement, alright? This isn't a common Rider Forze Henshin sequence now. Specific reference. And then, of course, we had Dino Fury, alright? Release the Morphin Grid, or whatever they said. They did some saving, alright? This is less boring than Beast Morphers because they punched the ground. They jumped high into the air. A hologram animal? Where have I seen that before, actually? Wow, so original, Power Rangers. Oh, and wow, pretty stars are circling around them too. How many constellations can you see in the background? Let me know in the comments. And you know what? We have a slightly cooler helmet formation, alright? It's a PNG slashed in two. Wow, wow, wow. It's like Drake in the Sprite commercial.
Last name ever, first name greatest.
When will it end? And our latest sequence is Power Rangers Cosmic Fury, and it's simply an expansion of the Dino Fury one. And since there's no Sentai based off of Morphin sequence out of, you know, because Cosmic Fury was original suits and everything, they're in the exact same start place they were in the Dino Fury morph, with just their undersuit.
You need to leave!
But the Rangers do have some flips though, and we actually see the belt strap come on and the chest piece coming too. Nice touches. And the Rangers would swoop swipe their helmets in. How cool is that, huh? Honestly, looks like an iPhone gesture. I could just whoosh. That's my notification center. And with that, we have all the Power Ranger morph sequences. From the most simple to the most complicated and everything in between. Power Rangers morph sequences are some of the best parts of Power Rangers episodes, and honestly, throughout this video, you can definitely see the art and the true meaning that each one of these seasons have. It's just another reason why Power Rangers is so special, and we love, you know, taking a look at the intricate types of things like this, because sometimes they put just so much love into the show, and that even shows off in the Morphin sequence too, because that's something you gotta air every single episode of your show. But hey, what do you think? What would you like to see in morph sequences of the future? But that is it for today's video. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter, ddonfuego. I'm also on Instagram, notdonfuego. Have a good morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you're at. Of course, and as always, stay awesome, everybody.